Well, yeah. I mean, I'll sort of tie it in then with the book, because Mission Impossible is written about the first two, big
Yeah,
adventures, Madagascar, well,
yeah.
Mongolia, and Madagascar. But obviously, we can talk about the cockles also. With the book, then, I mean, was that something you'd planned to write at the first adventure or the second one? Or was it something you just decided on after? Maybe when you did the Yangtze in China, was it something you'd always sort of thought about writing the book?
Yeah, I think, before Mongolia, all of these adventures that I was doing was just for the pure love and for the pure passion. There was no social media. I had a full-time job doing something different. It was only when I, wanted to pursue the passion of Mongolia, and I realized that people actually wanted to follow the journey. So there was an interest that I thought, wow, maybe I can share and, share stories from Mongolia that people may not have otherwise have known. And then I was thinking, how can, and the environmental aspect's always been close to my heart as well. So I was like, well, whilst I'm in Mongolia, why can't I do something to help the country that I'm walking through? And so with that, I partnered up with the British Red Cross. I was raising funds for their active work that they do in Mongolia. I was raising awareness about climate change and the effects it has on the nomadic way of life. And then brings me on to Madagascar, which was even more social media savvy. And there was even more sort of environmental angles. The Lemur Network Conservation was a huge partner of mine. And I was actually dropping off the mountain peaks on the journey to meet up with these organizations who were doing their utmost to protect and preserve the unique biodiversity of Madagascar. And so I was sharing their stories, almost shining the light on the real unsung heroes, which is themselves, who are often volunteering, risking their lives, and they just get a lot of negative news. It's kind of like the forests are burning, they shout about the negatives of that, but they don't look at the positives of actually these people are expanding the national park. There's people on the front line trying to put out these fires. They're supplying the younger generation with education, the older generation with good means of work. So that was my way. I believe positivity spreads positivity, and I wanted to really shine all the positive things, bring an awareness to the dark side, but in a positive way. And so with all of these stories of the adventure and the danger and the mindset and the training, but also, the environmental, the conservation angle, I thought this would be great to put this in book form. And I was looking to do that after Mongolia, but it just didn't work out. And so after Madagascar, I pushed again, and we were able to secure that with iPublishing. Mission Possible, which goes from the very beginning all the way how it started, even my upbringing, to all of the little adventures, to my time in Thailand, and of course Mongolia and Madagascar. And so that was great. We published that. That was translated into Vietnamese, where it all started, into Mandarin as well, being distributed across China, and in every English-speaking market. And so no, there's no Mission Yangtze just yet. But there is for the first two world records, which is the Mongolia and Madagascar one,
And let's talk about the cockerel then.
Yeah, Gertrude. He's becoming quite famous, that little chicken. He's even published in a David Attenborough book called Beastly Journeys. Bloody Gertrude, it's a chicken. So to climb the highest mountain in Madagascar, called Maramakotro, it's tradition, the locals say, that you must carry yourself has to be white, has to be male, so you must carry yourself a white cockerel. And they say that you must carry it to the peak, because the bad spirits and the bad witches that linger within the forest on your way up to the mountain peak are scared of white cockerels. And so they're a big believer in bad spirits and witches. And I'm all about respecting the local culture and the traditions. So I found myself a white cockerel and I named it Gertrude. I know I gave him a German female name and he was a male chicken from Madagascar. But Gertrude, pretty much, he was with me for over 2.5 weeks. He became fully domesticated, almost like a little dog. We wouldn't need to tie him up. We'd let him loose. He'd sleep on top of my tent, which sounds pleasant, but he would shit all on my tent, so I'd have to clear the next morning. If he got tired, I'd have like a little compartment in the top of my rucksack, a little zip compartment where his head would be out. So his head would be right here, 14, 16 hours a day, just chirping away with his chicken noises that got irritating, especially when you're hungry, when you're thirsty, and when you're pulling leeches and spiders off you and you've still got Gertrude chirping in your ear. But yeah, I had to feed him, I had to water him, I had to look after him. Became a bit of a bond between me and little Gertrude and the rest of the. I had one guide, I had a photographer and her porter with me, so there was four of us. And he was, Gertrude was going through the jungle. He was crossing crocodile-infested rivers. He was attacking the leeches that were jumping on the back of my neck. He was, he became quite a warrior. But we get to the top of the mountain, Maramakocho, which he made it successfully, and that's his Freedom Day. We set him free. In a nice scenario, in a bad scenario, it's actually called a sacrifice. So we set him free on the top of the highest mountain in Madagascar during cyclone season, unfortunately. So I didn't want to. I wanted to bring him back down, but they say if you bring him back down to a community, you'll be introducing the bad spirits and witches to that community, and you would be very much in the bad books. And maybe shooed off or chased off by the locals. And so, yeah, I had to leave Gertrude on top of the mountain, and it was all wet and sodden. He didn't follow me back down despite my best efforts of whistling and making chicken and sort of chirping noises. He just stayed put.
That's a shame. But anyway, anyway.
Hey, he could still be alive.
Yeah.
He could stay. He could be king of the mountain. We shall name him Mount Gertrude.
Never know. So you went from obviously there, then you went back to China and did the Yangtze. You walked the length of the Yangtze, which again, you've gone from one extreme to another extreme to another extreme.
Yeah.
Why the Yangtze?
So the Yangtze for me, ever since I travelled there in 2010, how I mentioned actually when I was 19 and I left, I knew I wanted to go back. I didn't know when, I didn't know what to do until I was planning my Madagascar journey. When I was planning Madagascar, so I'm always working a step ahead of myself. When I was planning Mongolia, I already kind of knew Madagascar would be next, and that would help motivate me to complete Mongolia, because I was there saying, well, if you can't complete Mongolia, don't even think you can attempt Madagascar type of thing. And so before I attempted Madagascar, I already knew that the Yangtze would be next if I was successful in Madagascar. So for me, yeah, it was, I always need a start and an end. I need a main goal. And so I couldn't just go to China and walk east to west. I guess I could. There's a great challenge there. But for me, the Yangtze River or the Great Wall of China or the Yellow River, something with a clean start point, a clean end point. There's a goal. There's a route there that you can follow. Got me excited. And it's pretty much, at that time, it's the biggest thing that I could find that hadn't yet been done. It's the longest river to run through a single country. It's only slightly shorter than the Amazon and the Nile, third longest river in the world. And for me, I just knew the first 6 months would be the wild side of China, which probably was wilder than Mongolia. You got the Tibetan Plateau. It's over 5,000 meters altitude, similar height to Everest Base Camp. It drops to minus 40 degrees Celsius. You've got bears, you've got wolves, you've got steep ravines, you've got landslides, cliff edges, 700 tributaries along the way of the Yangtze. And so it screamed hardcore, dangerous. It's almost screamed impossible, and all the locals and the team that I first came on board, again, said that it's just not possible. There was a team that tried to raft it in the 80s. It was an American team, and then the China team realized that the American team were trying to be the first team to do this. And so there was a bit of a race, and I think there was 6 members that died. And this was this isn't even walking, this is rafting, There was 6 members that died, and both expeditions failed before the halfway point. And so I did have that to consider. I think 2 died of altitude as well, and they weren't at altitude for long because the raft obviously moves a lot faster. Going down in altitude, I'd be up there for a lot longer, and I'd be sleeping, I'd be walking amongst the bears. I wouldn't be on the river trying, gradually escaping the bears. And so there was all of this, but then I also knew that there's the other side to it. In the last 6 months, it wouldn't be as wild. It wouldn't be as dangerous in terms of survival. It would be historic cities. It would be coming across immense diversity in the different minority or ethnic groups that I'd be coming across. It was the different dialects, the delicacies, and so I knew that this would be a heck of a story, not just one man and his endeavor, but the whole package almost. And I definitely had all the environmental angles as well. WWF were a huge partner with this. We were filming for a big international documentary which airs this month. And so, it ticked all the boxes, but it was just probably out of all the rivers out there, or just in general this decade, it was almost one of the toughest expeditions to plan logistically, because we're talking China. You can't pay money under the table for no permits. You can't sneak a fake visa. None of that. They are by the books. It is official. And it is sensitive. There's been big names I won't mention, but massive Hollywood names or singers that have had their whole nationwide singing tour cancelled just because one bad remark on social media. They don't care who you are, they don't care how many followers, how much money, they'll shut you down and kick you out of the country. So I knew there was no easy way around this. It was, and that's why it took over 2 years to plan. I've got a solid team out in China. I had to, they made me doctor for a year in order to get me ambassadorship, in order for then me as a doctor ambassador to be able to speak to the government, and the government to then be able to supply you with protection from the authorities. And with protection from the authorities, it allowed me access to the national park to get to the source of the Yangtze. So it was all these little stepping stones, like big stepping stones of all stamps and signatures. And that's why it took such a long time, as you can imagine. But that was exciting as well. I thought, wow, this is a whole different ballgame. I remember in Madagascar, I rocked up and they were about to stamp me a 4-month visa, but they had seen me on the news in Madagascar. They liked what I was about to do. So they just changed the stamp and gave me 6 months. It was that easy, Whereas in China, it wasn't going to be it wasn't going to be like that. But yeah, we managed to get there. There was still 2.5 months delay. That would put me deeper into the winter season. Into the torpor season as well, which means that the bears are actively on the hunt before they go into hibernation. And the expedition was almost a write-off, but we stayed strong. I stayed focused on getting to the source. The first attempt to the source was a failed attempt. It was too difficult, and all 4 members of my team became sick and had to evacuate. I rejoined with a second group, and finally, after like 2.5 months, we made it to day number 1. And we had 352 days to go.
It was 2.5 months before you even started it. You were there.
It was when I was out there. I was out there for probably 3 or 4 months altogether before I started the journey. Purely trying to get access and meeting up with these people and sorting stuff for the documentary and learning Mandarin and trying to find that right team. We just had people bailing all the time, and the teams would just freak out. Got to a point where I even took a Tibetan guide with me. That way, if I had altitude sickness, he would be able to get me off the mountains, because we were going up quite rapidly. But he ended up getting altitude sickness, and it was me that had to take him off the mountains. So I was like, this couldn't go even more wrong. It was a sort of drastic beginning. And then when we eventually made it to that source of the Yangtze River, the true and scientific source, I think after about 4 or 5 days, the police were rocked up in the middle of nowhere. They took us over to Tibet. They were questioning us. They were threatening to deport us. But because I had the right documents and I had the government on my side, they had to call through the government, and the government said, leave him alone, and put him back where you collected him from. And I think great thing is they did take me back and allowed me to continue. Bad thing is, it was a bit of a piss take. They dropped me 40 miles back on myself, and I had no choice but to walk those 40 miles again through the wilderness, where there was bare footprints, there was all sorts. And so, there was lots of setbacks like this that were almost constant, to a point that I had my production team in Beijing on the phone to me, and they were like, to be brutally honest, Ash, there's too many delays, it's too dangerous, you're going to be facing snowfall, you're going to be facing the bear hibernation, the wolves are actively out there as well, and all of the locals who live up there are, threatening against it. They're saying you need to get yourself, off the mountains, and they were pretty much saying abort the expedition and hold back another year, and we try again. But I just remained dogged. I had put over 2 years of planning and focus and energy into this. I was like, look, guys, I cannot stop this. I've started. I believe in my preparation. I believe I will avoid the bears, the wolves, and get off the mountains before minus 40 degrees Celsius before the depths of winter. I'd face minus 20, but I believed with the pace, I could just avoid the depths of winter, you know? And before month 4, we had lost now 10 members. These weren't members that joined me at the start. These were members that would drop in and they would try to film for a couple of days and they would leave, and they were guides for certain dangerous sections, and the guides would get sick, they would have to leave. And, you know, out of the 16 within the first 4 months that joined me, 10 of them were evacuated or had to abandon. So I was like, wow, this is intense. And, you know, if I did leave it a year, we would have been hit by COVID anyway, and I would have been sent home. So it's crazy how things work out, isn't it? If it wasn't for the Mongolia and Madagascar experience and knowing my preparation, I would have listened to the locals, because I always say you should listen to the locals. But there was something that I felt a little bit more experienced now. You know, it's my profession. I'm not that kid that cycled Vietnam anymore, and I, you know, continued to plow on. And I just look back and think, if I did stop and hold back another year, then yeah, there would be no Mission Yangtze completion. There would be none of this.
And you mentioned before then that it was filmed. Are we allowed to say where it's going to be airing?
On this weekend, on Saturday, I will be announcing.
Okay.
I will be announcing. Yeah, I can't just yet because the channel want to.
The big one. Yeah.
Yeah, shout out the first, but yeah, it's exciting. We're still working on the UK, so we're not secured in the UK, but I think the UK will jump on board once they realise the channel and the countries, continents it's going to be aired on. So fingers crossed for that. Yeah. But yeah, it'll be a 2-part documentary.
Okay.
Going out on the 20th of October, and then the second episode will be the 27th of October. So yeah, I'm excited to get that out there, you know, for sure.
It sounds like it's going to be interesting because, like you just talked about, the red tape and a few things the way you were walking through and the temperatures. It sounds like it's going to be an interesting documentary. It does.
Yeah, and that's pretty much only the first couple of months. The first couple of months, you know, and then the second half is more about, you know, the diversity of China, I'd say, and the locals and your stuff. So you don't just see the danger side, but you also see the real side to China and these big modern cities and the historic cities, and the younger generation with all their technology, and then the older generation with dying out traditions and their thoughts on one another. You know, it's quite quite interesting. Yeah.
How was your man doing then? How was it?
对了，我说中文一点点，中文很难。So I said, yeah, because I can speak Chinese a little bit, but it's very difficult. I pretty much just knew. I skipped all like the alphabet and skipped the basics.
Yeah.
I just went to my teacher and I said, I want to learn, where are the bears? Are there wolves ahead? Where's the next community? Can I eat, please? Do you have water? You know, straight to the sentences that would really help me on this expedition.
All the necessities you need when you go on holiday.
Exactly that. Exactly. And then the dialects continue to change, of course, because, you know, Shong, which means bear, was then something different in 100 miles from now. So you're like, Da Shong or Jolly Yo Shong. And they're like, oh, Bujadao. I don't know what you mean. I'm like, great. Oh.
Can we expect a book then from this, the Yangtze one?
Potentially. I'm just weighing up the odds on seeing if it's worth it just yet or not.
Okay.
I don't know whether to focus my energies in the documentary and then, you know, kick on the next one sharpish, the next sort of TV series of adventure, or if I hold back and focus on the book. So part of me just wants to go for the physical and smash out some more adventures, but part of me is like, you know, the business side, got to look at the book as well. So I'll keep you posted for sure. I'm still kind of thinking.
I know, like you mentioned before, I've been to many adventurers and travelers, and you've always one step ahead. You always got your next expedition or next adventure ahead when you're doing it. You're obviously pissed off that COVID's put a stop on everything. But were you meant to be in a way this year on something extreme again, or?
I wasn't. No, you know what? I've thrived, if anything, in these times. First of all, I've been locked down and isolated in much worse environments, you know. So I'm kind of thankful that if we're in lockdown, at least I'm home. But yeah, you know, I'm very business savvy as well. I understand that I can't just be doing adventures. It is 50% adventure, 50% business. And so with this, I have been still doing webinars, you know, online presentations across the world. I've still been doing brand collaborations and endorsements. I've still been working and liaising with the distribution team in Singapore, with the production team in Beijing. And I've recently got new agents on board from WME in Los Angeles, the Rocks agent, believe it or not, which is crazy. And so we're working on some big things. And I think between all of the teams now, it's a case of don't push straight away just to get another expedition done, but hold back. Let's think smart. Let's think clever. Let's plan a good strategy, a long-term strategy. And think more intelligently with how we go about this next project. And so that's why we're sort of focusing on this Mission Yangtze documentary with the hope of a spin-off effect of going back to that channel, pitching the next sort of adventure series. So may not be another huge sort of year-long world first, but it may be sort of short episodes and different, you know, this is my thinking. And I like to be open about it as well. I don't like to be too secretive, because the people are interested in the business side as well. And I believe by talking a little bit more about the business side, if anyone else is interested in that industry and every audience, at least there's some, you know, little things that they can think, okay, yeah, maybe I do need to strategize a little bit more or think of the business side, not just the adventure. So yeah, I think just be honest and transparent. And if anyone can take anything from it, amazing.
Do you leave all that in the hands of other people, like the brand management and things like that? Did you leave it in the hands of your manager now, or do you sort of get involved yourself and say you don't want to?
I'm still very much involved, heavily, and because I believe that I've still got what I have is that discipline to say no to a certain brand, even if the funds is good. But if it doesn't make sense for my brand, if it doesn't sit well, I'm sensitive as being seen as coming off a bit of a walking billboard with all of these advertising, constant plugging and adverts shouting about brands just to pull in the cash. I need to pay bills, but you know, I think to have that kudos and respect about you. And so I'm always, because the brand is me effectively, the AD brand is myself, and so I'm always curious about where that goes and how it's being seen. But then I do have different agents because, you know, they're the professionals. They're the ones that do know best. I know what's right for the brand, but they know how to grow a brand professionally, and I've done it many times before. So there's certain times where I just have to let go and think, look, they know much more than myself. So I've just got to bite the bullet, you know, get rid of this whole protective aura and just, you know, allow them to come back to me with what's best. But sometimes I do, you know, nip it in the bud and say, nah, that will come across too cringeworthy, or it doesn't fit right for the brand. And so I'm still very much involved in that sense.
Okay. And I could see you probably having a TV show on Discovery Channel or National Geographic or something. That would be the next.
I hope so.
But doing something like, you know, each week doing a different location around the world, extreme, you know, a bit like what Rain Mears used to do, or Bear Grylls, but a bit more extreme because you're a lot younger.
Yeah, you know, this is what I would, this is the direction that I would prefer to take now. Only because there's only a certain amount of time you can head off and be doing year-long. World firsts are hard to find anyway. And so if it's not a world first, it would be, you know, a big expedition. And so my idea is short, snappy. I'm 29, so I'm still super young. I was young in this industry. And it's a competitive industry, but I call it healthy competition. And I look at the competition quite a bit older than myself. So we've still got a good bit of leeway, but it's again about strategizing and planning sooner rather than later, and breaking in that industry sooner rather than later. Don't leave it too late and just bang out these big year-long expeditions all the time, because once you're out of Britain, you know, outside is out of mind type of thing to big brands and to TV shows as well. So yeah, it'll be interesting. These next couple of years will be interesting to see, because you can only try, and just persistence, isn't it? It's just persistence. It's staying on your A game and just keep keeping going.
And I was going to say, is there any place you wouldn't want to go to? You wouldn't go to?
I wouldn't go to. No, there's not. No, there's no place I wouldn't go to. I believe there's just so many amazing countries out there, so many different people to learn from, so many different wacky things going on in so many different countries that there's no country I would put my finger on and say, I don't want to go there. Even when it comes to the Congo, I've always been fascinated by. I do believe one day in the future, I will be doing something in the Congo.
Okay.
There's been a calling from a young age to the Congo. It's just sort of that heart of darkness, isn't it? It's just, just hardcore, just badass. And there's something about it that makes me want to go. And I guess I need to do it sooner rather than later, because I probably won't venture there, in the future, if I've got my own family and whatnot. Yeah. I would be like, you're not going to the Congo. I own it from my mum now.
I mean, what do your parents think of you when you first? I mean, I've only got a couple more questions, but what do your parents sort of think when you're starting on all this crazy? I say it's craziness, but it is. It's not, it's borderline craziness, isn't it?
Yeah. I think so. For the first one, for that Vietnam cycle, I think I told them like halfway through, dropped them an email, a little internet cafe, and good email reply to what they said. And I think it was at the bottom. I just said P.S. Currently halfway across cycling Vietnam, and I think that's how they learned about it. They were like, "What?" And I didn't have no phone, I didn't have no technology. It was just internet cafes, where you just put the coin in and it pops out. You got 10 minutes of internet activity, off you go, type of thing. But then it started to grow, and my parents have been super supportive. They're young parents as it is. They're up every morning jogging or cycling or whatnot. Very positive, motivational parents, and so that's good to be surrounded by that positive energy. I think they would prefer to see me they would prefer to see me happy doing something quite wacky, rather than see me doing something ordinary and safe but be quite down and moody. That would crush their spirit, I think, a little bit. So although it is a lot of dangerous stuff. At the beginning, I avoided telling them a lot of stuff. Like I didn't tell them, about the Pakistan army and Allah Haribbi, all of that sort of stuff. I didn't tell them, about to cross into Myanmar where there are no border controls. Many things that I avoided. But as the expeditions and adventures grew bigger, I was able to tell them, because they saw the preparation. And I think the preparation and the training made them feel comfortable. It wasn't a case of, hey, Mum, I'm going to buy myself a bicycle in Thailand. I'm going to cycle up to Mongolia, and then I'm going to walk across Mongolia with a small rucksack. It was like I was coming back, and they were seeing my mindset. They were seeing my fear. They were seeing me strategize my map work, planning with the right teams, with a logistics manager. And they were like, okay, I think he's not going about this reckless now. He's doing the whole risk assessment. He wants to make it back alive, having completed this journey. And that gave them some belief. And my dad, he's co-director of the limited company. He's very much full-time with myself. He's on board fully, which is great. I'm able to work with my dad. He's just as enthusiastic and as passionate as me. And so, we both keep grinding on the business.
Okay. So can we see anything where, you got Ash Dykes and his father traveling around the world or something?
Yeah, hey, let's hope maybe in the future. Then there's a while to get to that level yet, but maybe in the future.
You never know.
You never know.
Maybe he's in the background, fingers crossed. He'll get his chance with you at some point soon. So.
Yeah, I hope so. I've tried to take him to many, but I've taken him over to China 5 times, I think.
Yeah.
Where have I taken? I've taken him lots of places, Madagascar. And then so that's really cool as well. All business trips, of course, That's and he loves it. He thrives on it. I think he's suffering more with this lockdown than I am. He wants to get away. Where's our next business trip, Ash? Which is cool.
Oh, I can imagine. But just one last question then, mate, if you don't mind. Any kids that are watching this, or anyone young adults that are watching this, what's the best bit of advice you can give to them to if they want to sort of maybe not so much follow in your footsteps, but
Yeah.
even just discover the world? What's the best bit of advice you can give to them?
Yeah, best bit of advice, and not even just to discover, but I would say if there's a passion or there's a dream that they have, that could be in the corporate world, it could be in any industry they desire. I think the biggest key is just to keep hold and protect that vision. You know, whatever your dream is, whatever your passion, you know, nurture it, think about it. You know, break the goals down, manage your expectations. You're going to get naysayers along the way. I think it's important to realize that it doesn't matter if no one else sees it for you. You know, what's important is you can see it for yourself. And along the way, you're going to face so many setbacks, so many naysayers. It's about being dogged, being persistent, you seeing it for yourself, nurturing and protecting your dream, and allowing nothing to stop you. Just keep going. And I believe we are far more capable than we give ourselves credit for. So along the way, there will be downs, there will be doubts as well, you know, but just keep going. We can't always be motivated, but we can be disciplined, is what I like to say. So that would be it.
And
get after it, make it happen.
Yeah, and you're proof that, I mean, I don't say it very often, but you're proof that, well, not proof, what I'm going to say, I'm glad you didn't go to university, because had you not followed your dreams, you wouldn't be where you are now.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, 100%. You've got to stick with your passion. And it takes a long time. It takes a long time until you eventually make it. And there's a lot of risks and there's a lot of downfall. There's a lot of scuppered relationships as well. But yeah, it's that persistence, it's that doggedness, and it's knowing your path and staying on it no matter what hurdles or obstacles are in the way. Remove them and jump over or plow through. There's always a way. Just keep going.
Well, thank you, mate. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. It's taken us a while to get this chat.
We've spoken this by Twitter about a year ago, I think it was. Maybe about a year ago.
Yeah, well, we got it done, man. We got it done, and I'm glad we did. We'll try not to keep it so long next time. We'll touch base again soon for sure.
And maybe next time, if you're away somewhere, we can do it with a nice setting in the background while your mum's blind.
Yeah, and then maybe it'll be face to face next time as well. Hey, rather than these bloody Zoom calls all the time.
Yeah, that's true. We'll meet at some point face to face anyway. So yeah. All right, dude. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah, 100%.
Thanks, have
a good day. Have a good day and speak soon.
Okay, thank you. Cheers. Bye bye.